here rambling for the first 90 seconds, really, if I'm honest with you. Just because I know, much as I know this is a podcast, it's also a LinkedIn Live, and I feel like you have to wait for people to turn up.
Yeah. Let me see if I can actually see it as well, and I'll see if that green line is on there.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. We do that on my LinkedIn as well. Folks who are here already, Alex was saying that my camera looks like it's a distorted image, a little bit like on the old computers where your screen goes blurry or there's an issue. So if you see that on mine, let me know, because obviously it's going to affect the recording.
It looks good on my LinkedIn.
Okay,
it's just on the it's just in the backstage studio that we've got the gremlins. So that's all good.
Yeah, that's fine then. I don't mind that. You got to deal with that talking to this weird screen.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it doesn't do much for your complexion having this green line going through, but it's fine. It's fine.
Probably a good thing. It's a nice sunbeam on this side. This is where the sun is. So, if you've ever been on one of these podcasts, it's weird because the screens are the wrong way around. This is like my left side, but it's on the right hand side of the screen as I look at it. Anyway, I told you we ramble for the first 90 seconds. No, but let's get started. It's good if you're here. Also, first, if you're here, please say hello. It's nice to know who we're talking to. It makes us feel a bit better that we're not just talking to nobody, because obviously there's going to be so much valuable information being shared by Alex. Alexander, I'm not sure if I asked you. Are you an Alexander or are you an Alex?
For most of my life, people have called me anything but Alexander. But I actually quite like the name Alexander, so I kind of quite like it, but nobody else wants to call me by it, so that's that's fine. But you can call me whatever you want.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm the same, to be fair. My name obviously I've got Richard, which is quite a long, sounds really posh as well when I say it, but people don't normally call me one of those two either, Rich or Richard.
Yeah, well, I'll stick with Dickie. Is that all right if I call you Dickie throughout this?
To be fair, not many people know that. Not many people know that my nickname is Dickie. I'm trying to stay a bit more professional when people say me. But you can do it for this, I don't mind. We're all friends here.
Yeah, Dickie Turner, I like that. That's a kind of a front leading man name, Dickie Turner.
Yeah, to be fair, I probably should change it, but it's like I don't want to set off the wrong example for people. Hi, Mark. It's good to see you.
Speaking of leading frontmen, there you go, Mark Dietz, metal rock star in his own right. There he is.
Exactly. Get him up and playing that piano. Anyway, where was I? That distracted me with your name, Alexander. I'm going to try and use it now. It's nice to have you here, and it's nice to have this conversation started. It's going to be really insightful because for the last 20 years we've been dealing with tech and the vast improvements on it, but I'm not sure we really recognize or thought about how we navigate it for ourselves. So it'd be interesting to listen and have a conversation around what we can do for our own well-being to make sure that, or our own lives really, so that we have good well-being and we are performing and are productive as possible throughout. So before we get started, I'm just going to say hi, Alex. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm all good. In fact, before we really dive in, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is the real Alexander Bell. It's a momentous day today because it marks the day that he received the patent for his telephone device. So, which was like 148 years ago, I think, today. And I actually have a little working model here, so a little bit of history. And this is one of the very first sort of prototypes that he created, which the patent was all about. So he'd shout loudly into this thing, and there'd be another connected device with these wires in up to a couple of 100 meters away, and it would sort of operate like an old tin can with a bit of string, and you'd be able to send and receive and listen. So So yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to think that we're almost 150 years from, you know, this very first sort of rudimentary device being thought about and being created, to where we're now sat here with multiple devices. You know, I'm surrounded by these things. I'm talking into a screen with a green line through it. You know, it's just incredible to think how such a short period of time, you know, humanity on a whole has just changed. You know, it's gone from a bygone era into a tech-driven era for sure.
Crazy. Do you know what? I now have two questions. First off, I love that today we've organised that for this talk. The fact that,
of course, I mean, this you know, we did it for this date.
Yeah, completely on purpose. Everything about it. I also love the fact that you buy into the Alexander Bell name. But now my question is: have you changed your name on purpose because of the tech theme in regards to Alexander Bell?
So I mean, for my, you know, you talk about, do people call you Alex or Alexander? You know, for my life, the name around my question has been, is your middle name Graham? And one thing that I always found really fascinating was, no, it's not. I'm actually Philip. But when I looked into it, he wasn't born Alexander Graham Bell. He was just born Alexander Bell. And his two older brothers had middle names and he didn't. So for his 11th birthday, he asked his father, can I have a middle name like my brothers? And Graham was like a family doctor, worked with his dad, kind of a big family friend. And he really sort of looked up to this Graham figure and said, I'd like to have Graham as my middle name. So actually, you know, no, my middle name isn't Graham, but neither was his. There actually isn't an Alexander Graham Bell, like, doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So no, it's Philip, but there's no point changing it because, you know, technically he was born just Alexander Bell. So, but no, I kind of, it's been used as one of the worst business networking icebreakers for most of my career. until a few years ago, when I actually decided to, rather than be a telephone salesman, you know, actually do something with it. And it, you know, his life is a fascinating life, and I could, you know, talk for hours on the work that he did and the importance of the work that he did. And, you know, the telephone was just one invention that he worked on. He did a whole host of other things. Metal detector was one of his. He founded Bell Labs, which is still around today. It's now Nokia Bell Labs, and they have, like, I think 8 or 9 what's the term? Hang on, I even wrote about this on LinkedIn this morning, but I can't remember. One of the big prizes, Pulitzer Prize, you know, one of these huge scientific prizes that says that you've changed humanity, and they have about 8 or 9 under their belt. So, you know, he laid the groundwork for sort of radio transmissions and communications, and effectively wireless communications. Even back then, he had the world speed record for a hydrofoil machine. So something traveling on water, he held that for 10 years. You know, he did incredible things, but of course the telephone is the big one. But yeah, I'm very much in his shadow.
You've properly gone into depth on learning about Alexander Bell. I love that.
Yeah.
And I never thought this podcast would start this way. So thank you. And also, thanks for bringing up that perfect piece of equipment as well. Like, this is banging. I love this. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that often I get to talk about it, because most people, you know, younger generations, when you say, you know, who do you think invented the telephone, it's usually Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg. Of which I don't have any connection to those guys. So.
Yeah, you surprised me with some sort of crazy link to these two guys. But no, thank you. I don't know how to introduce it now. Right,
we're way off track. We're way off track now.
Way off track. Okay, let's start from this. Let's start from zero starting point. Let me introduce myself quickly, so the people who are here who don't know who I am from your network will know. So my name is Rich. I'm the founder of Employ Stuff. I'm a high performance coach and talk and help senior leaders, managers, and people unlock their potential and achieve optimal performance in both personal and professional careers and life. I also own the company Employees Health, which is a workplace strategy support company, helping companies look after their people and support their strategy they might have, whichever direction that looks, wherever that looks like. So, yeah, that's me. There's a little bit more, obviously. It's a really quick whistle-stop tour of what I do. If you want to know more, give me a shout. I'll talk to you afterwards. But now the important part is Alex. Hi, Alex. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Can you introduce yourself and tell me what you do? You tell me what you do.
Yeah, it was 9 Nobel Prizes that Bell Labs have got. Just to fact check my earlier ramblings. Yeah, so I'm Alexander Bell. I've had a career in tech, working with the likes of Google, Warner Brothers, doing some crazy things. I've been sort of in 360 in the virtual reality space for about 11, 12 years. I've been a lover of technology, ever since the days just before the internet was kind of really rolled out. I had a pager before I had a mobile phone. I got my first phone at age about 9. It was this Philips Diga, huge brick, but I loved it. It had 10 ringtones and it had spaces for 99 contacts or text messages, but not both. So if you got more than like 10 text messages, which was pretty rare back then, you had to start deleting contacts because the memory shared both contacts and SMS message space. Brilliant. But I loved it. And ever since, then I've been totally hooked on technology. And then it was kind of to go on to kind of my story and why we're here talking about this today. It was my lockdown sort of moment. I think everybody had an epiphany during the COVID lockdowns. Some people, it was lose weight, exercise, stop drinking, stop eating chocolate. Mine were all of those. But I also had another one around technology, which was when our eldest, I have 3 boys, and our eldest back then, we had 2 boys, was 7 years old. And, all the kids were having a pretty rough time. They were taken out of school, couldn't play with their friends, couldn't play outside, all of that going on. And Dexter, our eldest, had seen me kind of at the height of having a business, building and creating VR experiences for other businesses, bring all of this equipment home, headsets and screens. And I set up the home office and all the rest of it. And obviously was amazed by, the work that I was doing. And he knew of it. He was involved when I was doing work with Warner Brothers, and he was a big Harry Potter fan. So, of course, he loved all of that stuff. And I didn't, keep it from him. But obviously he saw this tech world and wanted to be a part of it. And he asked at 7, he kind of, I remember the day he came to me and said, Dad, I've been thinking about Christmas and I know what I really want. And, kids ask this question to parents, all year round, and every parent rolls their eyes and says, what do you want? What is it? And he said an iPhone. And I was just knocked off my, bowled over. I just wasn't prepared for him to ask for an iPhone. And I had this sort of green monster parental reaction that said they're dangerous, they're bad for your health, they're highly addictive, you're not having one, you're far too young. And he just turned around and said, Dad, if they're really that bad, why are you and Mummy on yours all the time? And it wasn't said in a smart way. It wasn't being a smart ass. He's the lovely child. He's the reason that you go on to have more children.
the eldest child syndrome. My mum screwed up with that after me as well.
So it was just him, just saying what he saw. And again, I'll just never forget it because he was so right. And I realized at that moment that I had a responsibility as a parent to guide them through their journey with technology, but also to really think about how technology was impacting me and my relationships with the people that I loved the most. And so I just went on this sort of inwardly journey, and I'd started that journey a few years previous because I'd sort of recognized that some of the projects we were getting involved with on a virtual reality perspective, I wasn't quite comfortable with. When it came to kind of education and learning and children, and we were being asked to sort of pitch for work that effectively replaced the classroom with VR headsets, I was just really uneasy with that, and we didn't engage with any of those projects. And so I knew that there was a bit of an internal struggle with loving the technology and how immersive technology can create incredible experiences, but not wanting the whole world to live in a VR headset. Whereas there are people in that world and in that industry that do want people to live in a world inside of virtual reality. It's just not who I am. So I knew that I was sort of approaching a crossroads, and it took that question to kind of really tip me over the edge. And ever since then, I was researching how we can sort of take back control of our relationship with technology, and eventually that led me down to create what I now call Tech Rules. And that's the book that I'm writing. It's what I talk about. I work with organizations now on that sort of aspect.
Fantastic. I mean, quite a story, quite of a journey. And I always like it when you hear people which were in that industry then go, actually, especially with the tech industry, because I think people buy into the power and the importance of it so much, and then kind of go out, step back and go, okay, actually reevaluate purpose, reevaluate your own values to see where this fits in. And I know your view on all of this. But before we get into some of that kind of the advice stuff and kind of potentially those views and what we can and can't do, be interesting to kind of get a bit more detail on what you think the impact of tech is having on our lives right now, and how potentially it's ruining our well-being or ruining our lives, probably a better term to start with. And then we can look into well-being in a bit more detail afterwards.
Yeah, I think the word ruining is perhaps
strong.
Yeah,
maybe
strong.
I'd
say it's definitely running our lives, right? And it's definitely running our well-being. I'm not sure. I think in some instances it absolutely is ruining lives. But I also think that there's almost no value in taking that extremist view, because technology is here to stay. And I'm certainly not an advocate for going and living in a cave and just turning off all technology, because that's a backward step, and I think it's an unrealistic vision to have. I think it's useful to do that maybe once a month. I think that would be a great thing to do. But in terms of the longer term, sort of field of view, I am a sort of a tech optimist, I think is the term, because I think we have to try and be hopeful, and we have to try and think about this in a way that we can make a change. But I do think that it is certainly running our lives and our well-being, and I think anybody who fails to sort of admit the amount of time that they are spending on technology is having an impact on them, is crazy, because the science is there now, the research is there now, the studies are there now, but it's also common sense. I think if you asked anybody, do you think you spend the right amount of time in front of a screen? I'm pretty sure, certainly everybody who I've asked, nobody says, oh, do you know what? I wish I spent a little bit more time in front of a screen. And everybody will readily accept that it's probably too much. And if you ask them to estimate how much that time is, we always grossly underestimate. How much time do you spend on your phone? Oh, maybe an hour, 2 hours tops. And then they have a look in their settings, because the data is all there. And it says, you were on your phone for 5 hours, 6 minutes, or whatever it comes back with. It. Everybody's genuinely shocked when they start to look into that data. And that's just the phone. You've then got laptop time, you've then got TV time, you've then got tablet time if you've got those devices as well. So it's just all the time. It's basically the answer. And I think going back to the VR thing, Apple have just released their big sort of flag in the sand for mixed reality experiences with their headset. And if you look at the marketing that was done around the Apple headset, you've got these sort of home environments, scenes that they play. And there's one that I really disagree with. And it's where there is a parent in the kitchen and they've got the Apple Vision headset on, and the child comes in a full football kit with a football and kicks it to them across the room. Well, number one, you shouldn't be playing with a football in the house. You know, that's just a golden rule of parenting and kids.
No balls in the house.
Yeah, but the parent doesn't take the headset off. The vision in front of them sort of recognizes that something is coming towards them, and so that it gives them the real world view. Yeah, that's an important safety feature. Stop you walking out in front of a bus, although it's probably too late if it, you know, appears in front of you and hits you. But so the ball, the parent sees the ball with the headset on, controls the ball, and then passes it back to them and doesn't take the headset off. And what that signifies to me is a barrier that technology has created between a parent and the child. But that could be in between anybody. And I think we're at a position right now where the phone is a real sort of social barrier. And it's done in a way that if it's out on the desk and you're trying to have a conversation, it's distracting you. You know, the research says that about 26% of your cognitive abilities is sucked in by having the phone within view. So you could turn it over or you could put it in your pocket. Well, that only reduces, you know, that sort of cognitive decrease by about 10%. You could leave it out of the room. You know, that's another way of doing it. But it's still this barrier. And as that barrier increases, as we get, you know, smartwatches, and you've got people now who will be having a conversation and just do that. They might only be checking the time, but because it's a smartwatch and they're, you know, doing this and they're swiping, they might see a notification. You've just killed that connection.
Yeah.
So there's all of these kind of interferences happening with technology. And I fear that when it gets into these things, which it already is, it's happening. You know, Apple's making that play in the market. There's lots. Ray-Bans have smart glasses now. You know, it's happening. I just think that it's just getting too close to killing, you know, what is a genuine human connection. And that's my fear.
I think it's more important now. I think it's killing, as you said, a genuine human need, which is more, I think we forget the connection and belonging and relationships is a human need. And actually, when we look back at COVID, one of the big things it did teach us was loneliness is a killer. Not having a tribe, not having a group of friends, not having people around you who you can connect with will kill you. Mental health was affected massively through that period. All the research says if you're lonely, that you're at high risk of death. I know, I mean, it's terrible to say it like this, but bluntly, I think if you're gonna mess around with that and actually take away any opportunity and put a barrier up to that human need, then what are we doing for our own humanity and well-being alongside that?
Yeah. And I think there's a danger that it gives a false sense of. So again, you ask the younger sort of generations, and you start talking about relationships and online relationships that they have. And there are, you know, genuinely kids now who their closest friends will be a player on a server thousands of miles away. And you ask them, well, you know, they're your best friends. You know, how do you feel about that relationship? They would never describe that relationship having, you know, lacking something.
Yeah.
And that's what you're referring to there. There's almost a false awareness around loneliness. And I know that's something you're very passionate about. And I think it's absolutely right. And I think it is a disservice, you know, to humanity that technology feels like it can solve that loneliness and that human connection challenge. And I think it can play a part, but it can't do everything. You know, I try and view my sort of communication and relationships that are done through technology as a stepping stone. So if this conversation that we're having now will hopefully lead to us meeting at an event or a networking session or somewhere in person, and we'll have actually elevated that meeting in person because we'll have had this prior conversation and we've connected and we've messaged and all the rest of it. So that is kind of adding, to that sort of that sense of connection. But if we never meet, if we never meet in person, that would be a great shame. But it would be wrong to describe that kind of connection, that in the room face-to-face connection, as this, because it's not the same.
No, it's not the same. And it's not the same when you look at it from a deeper relationship standpoint. Like we're business friends, or connections, but a relationship you have with your family or your friendships is a very different thing. So if you're not putting the time in there, which are actually deeper relationships, and actually, as you said, your phone is out, you're on that, been taken away from the important parts. And I'm very conscious of this within my relationships, that actually, and sometimes I'm not very good at it, but I'm conscious of it, which is do as I say, not as I do sometimes. But like, it's very impactful in how that will play out. And so, yeah, what I'm trying to say here, get my thoughts in the right place. I think it's important that we recognize what and how much technology is taking control of it. And as you said, you've given a couple of tips already, taking the room out, turning the screen upside down. As soon as you said that, I was like, actually, I didn't turn my screen upside down, so then the notifications don't come up and show me and distract me. And so, yeah, I think getting back to the key element of proper relationships, proper connections with human being on a level is really important.
Yeah, and that's really hard, to bring it back into an organizational perspective. With work from home and remote sort of colleagues, it can almost be impossible to say, well, we get that, we get that you have this sort of circle of friends and family around you that you have the opportunity to be in the same room with and develop those bonds. But we don't necessarily have that as a team in an organization when, we're just at a job, it's work, we turn up, and some of them are work from home and some of them are in the office. What do we do? How do we try and combat that? And the answer is it's really, really difficult. And I think from my experience, the answer is that you can't replace what can be created in a room, in a face-to-face environment. So you've got to acknowledge that, so that at least people can say, well, you know what's really important, if you're going to spend 8-9 hours a day on Zoom calls in front of a screen, in a bedroom or a home or a room in your house, what's really, really important from me as an employer to you as an employee is that after that work is finished, you go and have some actual face-to-face time with somebody in your life. And if an employer and a boss can support that, that's where you're able to kind of make up the deficiencies. And yeah, you may be crossing a line into personal life, and there's some boundaries that need to be respected. But I think it's wrong of anybody to say, oh, you can have the same connection, over Zoom calls and have a remote team, and enjoying Zoom parties and having Zoom quizzes, and you can make it fun and you can make it interactive, but you can't create this close sense of connection.
No,
you can't.
And I think this is where the work from home gets blurred. And I had a conversation actually earlier on about kind of that, the element of connection. And I always reflect back on it with my limited career in an organization of I have a career with a team of personal trainers, but what I enjoyed about going to that place was because I was with it was building that relationship. It was the people there is why I enjoyed going to that workplace. The job itself, luckily, a personal trainer, you are people focused. So for me, I love that. But what made it great was the people there. And if you don't have any opportunity to be around others and build that connection and belonging, and all you're doing is sitting on a computer all day doing admin or doing some calls, it's not the same interactions. It's not the same connection that you get from it. So I think the work from home process needs to be focused on. But I also don't agree with 5 days a week, and I don't agree with actually everybody in the workplace as well, because there's actually huge benefits from people working from home.
Oh, massively.
So
Yeah.
if I'm honest with you, I actually don't have the answer on that piece. Some people do it really well, some people don't. It depends on the kind of culture you have in the workplace, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's flexibility. I think that's the key answer to that element. And again, it's that role that technology is playing, which is enhancing the options that we have in order to find the thing that works best for us. Because, you know, me as a dad, working from home, you know, has massive benefits that I absolutely, you know, wouldn't give up for any job in the world. You know, being able to do the school run, it sounds really, really little, but it's just something that will eventually run out. And I you know, don't want to look back and say, yeah, I never managed to make a school run as a parent. So, you know, I'm so thankful that I get that opportunity. And that, you know, again, from an employment perspective, you know, is a huge perk to be able to offer that flexibility. But what you can't do is ignore the downsides and the elements that can be missing. And that's where I find teams that tend to work best have those key meeting points throughout the year where they all get together and they all do something, and there's that relationship and bonding that happens. And then they can go back into their silos and work remotely. And it's fine, because you can build on those bonds that have been created, you know, virtually, because you can say, hey, you know, Rich, remember when we were back then and we did this and we had that and we ate that? You know, you can always refer back to those memories and you build from it. That's what you do as friends, you know, friends that you haven't seen for so long. You always relate and refer back to those times. And so you can keep that going in the background, but you do need to have those key touch points throughout the year.
Yeah. And I also think it depends on the kind of person you are as well, because I don't think I could live I couldn't live from a work from home lifestyle. I couldn't do 5 days a week by myself. Don't have that in me. I'm not that kind of person. Some people can. Some people don't mind having that and actually having the communication like this. I need people. I need laughter. I need banter. I need those interactions which kind of fill my cup. To say so. Yeah, I think that's important. I think we've taken another sidetrack onto work from home, but that's fine. This is what this podcast is all about. And so we've spoken about kind of the impact on tech on our lives, a little bit around tech on our well-being, a little bit about tech in the workplace and how that's affecting us. Can we look at maybe now what we can do to manage tech positively for us? And I know you have obviously lots of views on this, but it'd be great to hear that. And probably get to hear at some point your tech rules. So yeah, go on. I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, so I think it's awareness is the first step. So if you can start to be more conscious and aware of what your tech use is, you can start to then realize the true impact that it's having on your life. And the data is there on your phones. You know, on you go into your settings. On iPhone, it's settings and screen time. On Android, it's settings and digital well-being. And the data is all there. If you haven't turned that on, you need to turn that on. And you can start to get a sense of your usage. You know, you can start to think more about, okay, I'm aware that I'm surrounded and I'm on tech. And if that goes on too long, I need to take a bit of a break. And so once you start to sort of realize the amount of usage that is happening, you can then start to think about, well, you know, what's the opportunity cost of this? Because it's not all bad. Some of it is absolutely required. Some of it is really good fun. You know, some of it is really great for us. So it's about trying to sort of label and think about, you know, where are the good bits that work? Where are the bits that, you know, doom scrolling and too much time on socials or repetitive inbox checking, which is a real sort of problem within the workplace. You know, where are the opportunities to improve, and what can I do with the time sort of gained back by not doing that behavior or activity? And that starts to put you in the right sort of mindset to kind of go, well, okay, I can start to think about making some changes. And if you can view it in a frame where you're either trying to increase productivity or you're trying to decrease the amount of time that you spend, slaving away at emails, or you're trying to increase the time that you're able to spend with family or do something, a hobby that you love, or even just get that workout in that you've been trying to do all week, or go for that walk that you've said that, would be good for you to get some fresh air, just to find those times to kind of make those changes. So the point I'm trying to make there is you've got to have a reason to kind of decrease something, because if you just decrease it on its own, you're then not going to see any benefit, and you're kind of going to ask, well, why am I doing this? And you just fall back into the same traps. So it's about it's about having awareness, and then it's about trying to figure out what's the pull, what's the reason, what can I do more of by doing less of this. And then you can look at things that can help you. There's tons of tools. There's loads of apps that will help you to kind of lock out apps on your phones and really give a detailed view of your phone usage. One of the ones that I love most is called, give me 1 second, Unplug with a Q. I've got it around here somewhere. It says,
this here.
Is it yellow?
Yeah.
Yeah, hang on. Good man. Have you got one as well?
I
can't see your screen because all I can see is this green line going through the pixelated thing. So I trust that it's the same as this.
Yes, it is.
And so what I love about these guys is the fact that this is a NFC tag. And so, if you have a particularly bad app, Facebook was one of my worst ones. And so what I tended to do was to lock the app to this NFC tag. So if I went on my phone and tried to log into Facebook, I'd also have to go and find this and tap it on the back of my phone in order to unlock Facebook. And that just drove me crazy every time I did it. And so it gets to a point where you realize just how ridiculous some of your tech usage is. And you end up just deleting Facebook. And that's where I've got to. I'm, pretty much Facebook free now. And so you can use tech to support you to get you there. But unless you've got a reason and an understanding and an awareness around it, it's a huge behavioral change that you're trying to drive. This is a habit that, Facebook has been around, since sort of 2004, 2005. So, this is 20 years of daily use. We've been smoking a pack of 50 a day, for 20 years. You're not just going to change that habit overnight. So you've got to kind of try and build up to it. But the first starting point is the awareness. And then you can start to think about, and I call them tech rules, because we all have these rules and behaviors and habits. We just haven't designed them intentionally for our own benefit. They've been designed for us by the people profiting from our attention. So tech rules is just this idea in a label where you can start to design your own tech rules, and it gives you control of your technology. And as an organization, you can have a culture of your tech rules, which says, no emails on a Monday until 12 o'clock, no emails after a Friday at 2 o'clock. Just give people some breathing space. Set up your servers so that, people can send, but they can't receive, internal emails after a certain time, so that it gives people the ability to get it off their desk, because that's what everybody does if they feel they have to work late. But it means they're not impacting anybody else's desk until the morning. So, technology can be a real help. But unless it's designed in a way to help and support us, you're just at the whim of somebody else making profits from your use.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I didn't know you could do that. I knew you could, as an organization, set boundaries and rules. The interesting part there is I didn't know you could set non-inbound, not incoming emails, but you could still send emails.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Microsoft has that ability, but there's certainly a ton of email providers that do.
Yeah. It's interesting. Is there anything else in regards to looking after our well-being that you could kind of give us? Any tips?
So I think, again, it's that space element. So it's that B word again. It's the boundaries. So, bedroom's the biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
We are waking up to email, and we're going to sleep on email and socials and everything else. I describe it as we are stressed before we're dressed these days. We are beginning our work day before we've changed our pants. And it's true, we are. And it's not a good thing. We need a better morning routine. Again, the science says if you get some sunlight, if you have a space before you hit into your screens and your inbox and your news and your scrolling and everything else, give your mind time to wake up. There are huge productivity benefits, focus benefits, health benefits. Everything is a benefit. So it's about designing your boundaries around your home. And the bedroom's the key one. You need to try and kick the screens out of the bedroom. You need to take a partner to bed rather than your smartphone. And it's really hard. I struggle with it. And so I now have a system where, if I have a bit of a craving for something on Netflix, then I'll take the tablet to bed, but I'll make sure that it's not the phone, and the tablet is locked down, so it hasn't got email or anything on there. It just has kind of the core apps and Netflix and a few things. So, I can watch one episode, and I can close the tablet, and I can, put it away, and I know it's not going to wake me up, and I can't check emails on it. I can't do anything else. The phone is out of the room. So I'm still able to get that sense, I'm not missing out on Netflix. I'm not, because I'm not powerful enough, I suppose, if you like, to really get a grip on my tech use that I can get rid of the phone or totally get rid of the devices. One day I might be able to, but I'm a sucker for binging Netflix, and I like a beer and a bit of chocolate. I would be, if you were my personal trainer, I would be that guy who turns up and goes, "Come on, Rich, I'm here. Let's do it. Let's smash it out the park." And I'd give the workout my best try, and you do a diet plan and everything else. And I'd come back the following week, and I'd go, "Yeah, I did try, Rich, but I'm here. I'm here again, and let's do it again." I'm that guy.
Yeah.
So
repeat service, we call that.
Yeah. So I give myself room to be able to not mess up, but just room to be flexible with technology. But I know fundamentally that if I'm waking up and checking my emails and checking LinkedIn and doing this, that, and the other, that it's just not a good way to start my day. So I make sure that I've moved the device downstairs. So it's about creating those boundaries. Yeah. And there's another element to this, which is an app that, it's not even an app, it's just an online platform that I use, which is called FocusMate, which is my super productivity hack for anybody who works in front of a screen, especially those who work from home. And I've been on FocusMate now since, I think, 2018. I've done like almost 4,000 sessions on there. So, I'm a heavy FocusMate user. And what FocusMate is, just to quickly describe it, you jump on, you can be matched randomly with anybody in the world, or you can have a favorites list of people that you want to be matched with. And you set aside either 25 minutes or 50 minutes, and you sign up to a session, can be there and then, or you can calendar it so it can be later in the day or tomorrow or next week or whatever. And you turn up, and it's like a Zoom call like this. So we'd log on a couple of minutes before, and I'd say, "Hey, Rich, what are you going to work on?" And you'd say, "I've got this document that I'm working on, and I need to do 2 emails." And I'd say something similar. And we'd then mute our microphones, because nobody wants to hear squeaky chairs or burps or stuff that goes on. But we just do the work, and we leave the cameras on. Yeah. And what's amazing about that is it gives an element of social contact. It's not the same as being in the room, but it does add a flavor of social into the day, which is great if you're working from home. It gives accountability. So I've said to you what I'm going to do. I've kind of made a bit of a commitment. You don't really care if I work on that or not, but there is this sort of truth element of an accountability of, well, I should really do what I've said that I'm going to do. It keeps you in the chair and keeps you working, stops you wandering off and making that 17th cup of tea or, you know, going and doing something else. You know, you sit and you work and you focus. And there's a time constraint. You know, it's the Pomodoro technique. So you know that you're going to work for that 25 minutes or that 50-minute session, and there is an end point, so that when the end of that session comes, there is I think it's a harp actually that gets played, and then we check in briefly. How did you get on? You know, yep, great. Did my 2 emails, did the document, perfect. Have a great day. See you later. But you're able to then sort of step out of the chair and walk away for a few minutes. So I schedule these sessions back to back if I'm working from home. During the school runs, I'll get about 6 done, but there's a 10-minute window in between each one. It's been designed that way, and that's how you can do Zoom meetings. I always say to people, don't have an hour-long Zoom meeting, have a 50-minute Zoom meeting or a 45-minute Zoom meeting. Give people that breathing space in between back-to-back sessions so that you can get up, get out, move around, get a quick drink, and go at it again. You know, it's you know, my system is work for 50, walk for 5. So I make sure I'm out of my chair and I'm moving around for 5 minutes. You know, I've got a standing desk, you know, I use that as well, which is great. But being able to just step away and come back gives that kind of, it's a bit like, you know, you have your best ideas in the shower. It just gives you that tech-free space to go away, think about something, and come back and do it again. And that can have a massive power for focus and productivity, rather than just sitting there for 6 hours just trying to get it done. You know, it's just that's no way to do it.
Yeah, it's also a tip. I always remember my friend, you know, Ryan Hopkins.
Yeah.
Ryan Hopkins always talks about that, booking meetings in for 25 minutes, and there's some research behind it. And I can't remember exactly what the research is. My brain is one of those kind of brains which just remembers weird statistics. I know Ryan's is though. Anyway, I also like the tip. I'm the opposite to you. I'm so much better at nighttime with my well-being behaviors or my tech behaviors. So, I mean, I think it's really hard to not have your phone in the bedroom because it's your alarm, or it's your safety alarm anyway. Because when a power cut happens, then my alarm doesn't get thrown all over the place. But I'm very good at not being on my phone, apart from one message just before I go to bed to say goodnight, and then I read. And so actually had those behaviors beforehand were way better for me. The thing I struggle with, unlike you, is my morning routine, getting up, not checking my phone. If I've got to be out, I'm way better. If I'm off to a day full of client interactions, I'm way better because I'm up showered. But when I'm working from home, I get up, maybe lay in bed, look at LinkedIn, even write a LinkedIn post sometimes to get the interaction in. And so there's better behaviors which I know I need to do. But
I mean, you know, it's no place for me to say that's right or wrong.
Yeah, but I agree. There is a space for good, positive wellbeing behaviors with backed research behind not looking at screens too early, seeing negative news, seeing things you. There is so much kind of research behind it. So there is, but at the same time, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but I think there are, and I've seen them and I've had them. I've been there myself. If things are going bad, especially at work, if there's serious deadlines and a lot of pressure and stress, or a project's gone bad, or there is a team issue, or you've got to fire somebody, or whatever it is, and you're really under that stress and feeling that stress, 100% the worst thing you can do is wake up the following morning and just dive straight in. That's just not going to help at all. And unfortunately, there is a lot of people who are in that situation. They are turning up to work, they are churning it out, they are leaving everything on the table, but they're doing it day in, day out, and that will lead to burnout for sure.
We don't realize that as much because we run our own businesses. So
we're in a fortunate position.
Yeah, I agree. We're in a fortunate position.
And that's the thing. That's the other side to this, I think, is sort of digital well-being and mindfulness and space, it is a luxury. It is a privilege. You know, there's a lot to be said when um, Steve Jobs famously said that, you know, his kids go to a school where there aren't any laptops and there's no iPads and there's no iPhones, and he keeps his kids away from them. And, you know, he's not the only one. You know, these are, to be able to live in a world where, you know, you can just disconnect. It's like Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran famously says he hasn't had a phone for the last 4 years, I think 4 or 5 years. That's because he's Ed Sheeran and he's got a team of about 7 assistants who are all on the phones constantly, right? So it's a place of privilege. And if we can start to frame it in that way, we can create those privileges for ourselves. It's very easy to do, but you've just got to be intentional about it. So if you can view that 5-minute walk in the garden or outside or wherever it is as a privilege, rather than, oh, it's just another thing that I feel I have to do, then, you know, then you look forward to it and your mind kind of really feels the benefits from doing it. So I think that's the kind of the change that I think we really need to, and we are seeing it happen. But it's also the truth, because it's what people in power and in privileged positions have done for a long, long time. They've all had assistants and PAs and personal assistants, and the ability to, you know, to go on a retreat for a week because they can, you know, and they're surrounded in luxury whilst they do it.
So right, isn't it? I think my brain's now just playing out how Ed Sheeran doesn't have a phone. Yeah.
It's true. You can Google him. He says it on loads and loads of interviews. I haven't managed to interview him personally yet. I will do one of these days. But I will cut. I'll call him out on it.
At some point.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I think we've covered quite a lot. We've looked at how tech is impacting our life, how it's impacting our well-being, how it's impacting the organizations, and also how we can kind of control that and manage tech and hopefully use it to optimize some of this stuff as well, because it isn't just a tool, and a negative tool. It's also a really positive tool. So I think understanding that difference as well. And so I think that the only way to finish is with a bit of advice. So I always finish the wellbeing chats with this question, or an abbreviation of this question. So what's Alexander Philip Bell's top three tips for navigating tech in today's world?
I'm going to ask you. I'm going to flip it and say, what are three? And I will answer it, of course I will. But I'd be interested to hear what are 3 things that you think you do. So you've already said one, which is reading before bedtime. What are 2 other sort of things related sort of tech habits that you've been aware of and maybe changed over the years that you think have had the most impact?
Very good question. This has never been done before. I'm not even sure I'm allowing it. Good question. I mean, yeah, the reading before bed is definitely one. One of the other bits of tech, and I'm not sure you can call it tech, which I've bought, which I absolutely love, is a Lumi light.
Yeah.
And so I have that before and after bed, or before and after sleep, which I found helps kind of just calm the lights and wakes me up nicely. Which I think
just explain that a little bit for anybody who doesn't know.
So a Lumi light,
it's the quality of light, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the quality of light, but it's also like the gradient. So it starts, so at nighttime it'll start like with a lighter light, which is more of an orange one at nighttime, and it will slowly dim to a darker light. And so that's when I normally start my reading, start with the light, and then do like the 20 minutes, 25 minutes worth of reading to get to the dark stage. And then in the morning, 30 minutes before your alarm goes off, this light comes on very low. And then for 30 minutes, it begins to gradually improve. So then you're waking up more naturally rather than in a dark room. I find that super helpful. My girlfriend hates it, but I love it. And then tech-wise, I think I'm quite good at some boundaries, because I don't really like responding to emails via my phone. So that may be a boundary I've put in place. I don't really like responding to an email via my phone. I prefer to sit down and send an email via my laptop. So that's probably be quite a good boundary I've had in place, but it's not a rule which I've put in.
Yeah, no, those are great. So I think for me, three areas would be boundaries, breaks, and I think you either choose bedtime or breakfast. Start with one of those. So boundaries, being both physical boundaries and virtual boundaries, and it's about kind of saying, ring fencing things. So it's about saying, okay, if I'm going to sit down and work and I've got this important project, a boundary that I'm going to create is not to have the inbox open, just to totally get the inbox away because I need to focus on this project. Another boundary could be that that actually, again, around inbox, if you identify as not an inbox zero person, which I am not, I've tried, I can't get there, I never will. I declare actually every year I go email bankrupt. At the end of the year, I just archive everything and I start the year on zero. It makes me feel good about myself. It very quickly becomes not zero again. But it means that I've just got this feeling of, I know that I can just let go of it all and it's all still there. It's not, I'm not deleting it all. It's all just archived. But it just means that it was that an email that came in, perfectly timed notification. It means that I can just disassociate myself from email a little bit. So that's kind of an example of a boundary. But then a physical boundary at home, you need to have a space. Ideally, it's the bedroom. Ideally, it's the whole upstairs, or you can go big or small. Even if it's just the garden, can be a space where you can be tech free and you can go into that space and that you can walk in without your phone and without your devices and just be, just read a book or do something physical, enjoy your coffee or your tea or, a treat or whatever it is. Just do something that's not tech related. So that's kind of the boundaries and the breaks. The breaks element is making sure that you are scheduling time to have a break and a break from technology. And for me, the system with FocusMate works perfectly well, but you don't need FocusMate to have that system where you are working solidly for 50 minutes and then going and getting a 5-minute break and then coming back and doing the same. But that break isn't me sat on social media. That break is me walking around the house, going quickly outside or doing something else, getting a glass of water, doing 10 push-ups, wherever it needs to be. But it's the importance of that break. And then the third thing is, you start by choosing either your bedtime or your breakfast morning routine and really design it intentionally and design when you're going to engage with the inbox or with technology or with socials or with news or whatever it is. Really think about it and design it and try and stick to some times so that you can protect that first morning mind. Or if you're a parent, you can actually make sure that your kids are ready and have a bit of parent time before the day starts. If you don't have kids, do something fun. Do something fun with your partner. We are guilty of not saying good morning to our partners anymore. It doesn't happen. Just does not happen. So, you can pick something. If you live on your own, find something, meaningful. Music is great for this. Stick your favorite piece of music on in the morning and have a dance around for 3 minutes. Do something that sets you in the right. Yeah, do something that sets you in the right trajectory. And then it's the same for the bedtime, so pick one. So boundaries, breaks, and then it's either bedtime or breakfast.
Love that. And I'm just talking about boundaries, but I think for both boundaries and breaks, I think they work perfectly for both your personal life and your professional life. Yeah, I'm glad you explained that kind of difference, because obviously, what you say is both well-being for people, well-being for organizations. So I think that's fantastic.
Well, I think they go hand in hand. I describe it as, if I feel like I'm being a good dad at home, then I feel like I can be a good dad in the office. And that doesn't mean being a dad in the office. It just means I can turn up to work knowing that I'm kind of, you know, feel like things are going in the right direction. And it just puts me in the right mindset to be able to do work. And then if I know that I'm repeating that when I go home and I feel that I've accomplished something during the workday and I'm able to down tools and then be a parent and really enjoy my time outside of work, that then sets me up for another great day when I do go back into the office. So it's this cycle of being able to turn up and be the person that you want to be, both outside of work and inside of work.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, thank you, Alexander. I really appreciate your time. I've actually enjoyed the conversation. I can't believe an hour has gone by. I'm looking forward to you clipping up some of this stuff because I never do it. So I'm glad, I hope you will. I actually might clip up the first 10 minutes because the first 10 minutes are a hilarious way to start a podcast talking about Alexander Graham Bell. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate your time. I hope people hear. I've only seen Mark's comments, but there might be more. Sometimes there are more which come up. Have enjoyed it and found some real valuable insights. But if you are here still, the next one is next week. I'm just about to go and put that live on LinkedIn, so keep your eyes out. But other than that, Alex, thank you. Stay where you are, and we'll see you all soon.
Yeah, thanks everyone.